All right, we've got to talk about this. I just saw somebody talking about how you should forget about motivation and you should focus instead on discipline. Jocko Willink is the person who said this, who is quoted saying this, that motivation only gets you so far, and that what you really need in order to get what you want is discipline. I want to unpack this and think about it. Obviously, this is motivation code. We're talking about motivation. We're talking about what motivation is. And I want to draw some distinctions between motivation and discipline and what you really need in order to get what it is that you want. If you're new here, you can learn about motivation code by clicking any of the links down below. My name is Kathy. Let's dive into it. Let's first talk about discipline. What is discipline? Discipline doesn't sound like fun, first of all, but it's something that we all need. You know, if you have kids, I have kids, they need discipline. They look to you to establish discipline. They look to you to establish ground rules, guardrails, boundaries of what is acceptable in your household as a member of the family. Discipline is a great thing. When it comes to you and me, self-discipline, making a commitment to yourself of, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to get up every morning. I'm going to put my shoes on. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to eat protein for breakfast. I am going to the gym. Discipline is a commitment that you make to yourself to do something, to get something done. But if you are disciplining yourself to do things that go against who you really are, then it's kind of torturous, isn't it? How long is that going to last? Now, they talk about motivation in some of these videos that I've seen on YouTube. They talk about motivation in terms of something that you go outside of yourself and you go get. You go listen to Tony Robbins. I love you, Tony. I love Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins has been motivating me since I was in high school. My mom had Tony Robbins books and tapes all over the house and was constantly playing those. I learned about NLP when I was a little kid because it was just around me. I've always found motivation outside of myself, but there are some things that I choose to do, that I make a commitment to myself to do, that I discipline myself to do, that I want to do. An event that I'll set up and I'll say, I want to do it this way and it's going to be like this. And I have a vision in my mind of how I want things to go. And it is an internal, intrinsic motivation that comes from within me. I don't need Tony Robbins to tell me what to do. Tony Robbins is helpful, you know, with some techniques and tools and everything, but he's not telling me what to do. He's not giving me like, go have this event and establish it this way and market it that way and do your thumbnails this way. All of that comes from within. I think you need both. You need to have discipline because you make a commitment to yourself, but you need to have intrinsic motivation. If you're going out and establishing discipline for yourself, or you're going outside of yourself and you're finding motivation to get through your day, you're listening to motivational speeches, all of that. If you're going outside of yourself, it's always going to end up running dry eventually because it isn't you. It isn't connected to who you really are. It isn't connected to your purpose. It isn't connected to your story. It isn't connected to the you that you really are. Humans are incredibly adaptable people. We're an adaptable species. We can go into an organization, figure out the lay of the land, the topography. Okay, this boss acts that way, that boss acts this way. Here's the purpose of why I'm here. I have a reward of a paycheck and some accolades, but you also have some other motivations. You have a purpose there. You've taken the job for a specific reason. It aligns with something that you like to do. Let's at least hope. If not, you need to find out who you really are because life is too short to be in a job that is not you. But humans are very adaptable. We'll go into an organization, go into a situation, and we will adapt to the things around us in order to fit in order to get what it is that we perceive that we need and want from this organization. If you don't know who you are, the boundary of who you are and what the organization might demand of you might get a little wonky. You might be sacrificing too much of your true self in order to fit in with an organization. In that case, if you are giving up too much of who you are in order to fit in with boss A and boss B and all of the things that the organization is demanding of you, you lose sight of yourself. You have to know who you are. If you are looking outside of yourself to define who you are, then you're going to look outside of yourself for discipline. You're going to look outside of yourself for motivation. What I think I like most about Motivation Code is that we are looking specifically at your stories, your experiences, your feelings, the stories that you know to be true about yourself. And we are using decades of motivational science to pull out of your stories in order to help you figure out who you really are. So while it is an external tool that's coming back and reflecting to you something, it is reflecting stories based on your experience. So in this way, you stop living on external factors. You stop living a life that is focused on how you are defined from an external source into defining your motivation from within. If you are still looking for that motivational video to keep you going in the morning, or some discipline, or some ideas of do these 9 things that you should do in order to succeed this year, if you're looking outside of yourself for all of these things and you are not looking within, if you are not looking at what is true to you, if you are not getting to know who you really are and understanding who you are and what motivates you, then you're just going to be adrift at sea with whatever motivational speaker is next or whatever idea comes next. And you're going to try to force yourself into a box of discipline that isn't really you. Here's a better picture. You wake up in the morning knowing who you are, knowing what lights you up, knowing how you are fulfilled, and you take the knowledge of discipline that you've learned from some external sources and you put that together with your intrinsic inner motivation as the motivational dimension that you know yourself to be, and you sketch out your day based upon who you really are. You are achieving goals based on who you know yourself to be. Then the energy is flowing. The energy is flowing from the inside out rather than trying to find external sources in order to make things happen. Life is an inner game. It's all inner. Now here's an exercise. If you close your eyes and you just listen to the sound of my voice, you may hear birds chirping or noises somewhere out in the world. But if you close your eyes and you just listen to my voice, and maybe you can feel the chair underneath you. You can feel the air blowing around you if the air conditioner is going. You sense the world outside of yourself. Your 5 senses, 6th if you're a little woo, tell you something about your world. These are data points that tell you what your world is like. You get to decide the story you're going to ascribe to each of those data points. The wind is blowing. It's cold, or maybe it's a hot wind. Maybe it's a dry wind or moist wind. You tell a story about that wind, and maybe you might even tell the story of what that means for the weather for the day. Vision, if you open your eyes and you look around, you tell yourself the story of everything that you see. The sound of my voice, even though it sounds like maybe it's coming from external, your senses, your sense of hearing, is the thing that is sensing the changes in air frequencies or airwaves. Your sense of hearing is the thing that is sensing that external experience outside of you. Everything's really an inside job. The story that you tell yourself, the discipline that you establish, the motivation that you have is all an inside job. You can look at things outside of you and tell a story about all of those things. But what it's really going to boil down to is the story you tell about the data you're perceiving on the inside. You can try all you want in order to try to say that something is external, but it's a story, and it's still a story you're telling yourself in your head. Why not start there? Start with motivation and the self-knowledge and knowing who you really are, and relax into that rather than trying to force discipline or force motivation from the outside. When you start intrinsically on the inside, things start to shift. What starts to shift is your sense of self, your sense of safety, your sense of passion. The carrot becomes much more interesting than the stick. You don't have to force yourself to be something that you're not. The more you focus on who you really are, the more you start to shift into knowing that who you really are is an expression into this physical world. If you haven't yet taken Motivation Code, go take it. Figure out who you really are. It starts to make everything else in your life make a little more sense.